Base with our Kakamega Base reporter Alan Ochanda. Good morning, Ochanda. Today you're coming to us from Kericho County as we observe the International Day of the Girl Child. First Lady Rachel Root is expected there. What's the mood and what do you have for us this morning?
Child, of course, here at the LREB. LREB is the conglomeration of 14 counties, that economic group, economic block of bring together 14 counties from the Lake Region economic block. And so under that spirit, they've actually seen it best to ensure that they celebrate this International Day of the Girl Child here in Kericho. And of course, the theme of the celebrations is invest in girls' rights, our leadership, our well-being. And so looking at, of course, what we expect here is just the triple threat, as according to my colleague Ken Gashui's story, is that the triple threat: gender-based violence, HIV infection, and also teen pregnancies. Those are actually the main threats, the triple threat here. And so, according to these particular celebrations here, they're actually looking as to how they can dive into how they can combat that, and also just stop checking the milestones in combating the the triple threats of SGBV and also teen pregnancies and HIV. Looking at LREB counties, the prevalence is actually specifically in the counties of Migori, Siaya, Kisumu, and Homa Bay. They actually account for 52% of the national burden of HIV infections. And also, of course, these are actually intertwined. The gender-based violence, HIV infections, and also the teen pregnancy are actually quite intertwined. Of course, if you're actually married at a tender age, then you're actually quite vulnerable to gender-based violence and also the issue of HIV infections. Because, of course, if you're actually married to an elder person, an older person, then you may not really make sober decisions, not sound decisions. You may not be quite independent, so you are quite predisposed. But we are expecting that this particular conference here will also be diving into that, looking at the predisposing factors which actually make these, of course, our girls in the society more vulnerable and susceptible to these three threats of gender-based violence, teen pregnancies, and HIV infections. And also looking at the press release here is actually that they're actually looking at how they can maybe employ on county assemblies, of course, nationally, to ensure, of course, in the countrywide, to ensure they just legislate laws to ensure they embed some specific amounts of cash, of course, a budgetary allocation to affirmative action money to ensure this is actually quite addressed and, of course, just ring-fenced within the law to ensure that this is not just talk shows, but just to ensure that it's actually ring-fenced within the law. And also looking at the report here too, the issue of gender-based violence is also quite rampant in the LREB region here, the Lake Region economic block. But Dennis, we expect leaders from across the 14 counties here, especially the first ladies, of course, they are quite been vocal and spearheading this particular initiative here. But we also are expecting a number of governors here. We know that, we understand that the host governor of Kericho, Dr. Eric Mutai, will also be attending this particular function here. Of course, the men have actually been tipped to ensure that actually champions of ensuring they combat the three threats, which I mentioned earlier. And also just looking, of course, they're already set here. The guest of honor will actually be gracing this particular event is actually the First Lady, Madam Rachel Root. We actually expect him in a couple of minutes to come. But as I mentioned, is that the First Ladies of the respective 14 counties under the umbrella of the LREB economic block are actually the people, the women really spearheading this. But we also expecting the governors. Also remember that within the LREB region, we also have a female governor from Homa Bay, Madam Gladys Wanga, of course, are really on the forefront to ensure that these particular three threats are quite combated from a common front. And so, Dennis, we shall be camping here from this particular minute to when the occasion will be underway to its conclusion, and just bring our viewers to speed with the happenings here and, of course, in our subsequent bulletins. Dennis.
Thank you very much, Alan Ochanda, as you continue to follow up on that